Welcome to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Kentucky attorney Jeff Roberts has over 25 years of experience. He'll provide answers to your questions related to personal injury and automobile accidents, workers' compensation claims, and Social Security disability benefits. Let's join Jeff for this episode. And friends, we're back in Murray, Kentucky with attorney Jeff Roberts, and today we're going to offer some safe driving tips. Jeff, how are you, guy?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Man, I'm doing fine. I like having these kind of public service announcement episodes with you. And today we're going to talk about seatbelts. We're going to talk about child seats, seats for the kiddos. And we're going to get into a couple of other things, including some distracted driving issues. Jeff, you've practiced in Western Kentucky for almost 33 years now. A big part of your practice deals with motor vehicle accidents.
It does. I've represented people in motor vehicle accidents since 1992. All over the state of Kentucky, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this topic is while I've devoted my career to representing victims of injuries, from that standpoint, I've represented several people, several families from where a family member unfortunately passed away as a result of a motor vehicle accident or work injury, something of that nature. From the motor vehicle accident standpoint, I would much prefer not to be talking to surviving family members, and seatbelts are a huge factor in surviving a motor vehicle accident from that standpoint. So, I wanted to do this podcast episode kind of devoted to safety things that we can do for ourselves. Unfortunately, sometimes wrecks happen that we can't control because somebody else crosses a center line or runs a stop sign or a red light, and we can't control that. But these are some actions that we can control to, even though we may not be able to control the crash, we can hopefully help lessen the injuries from it. And seatbelts is one of those, one of the key factors that you can use to provide for your own safety in a motor vehicle.
Jeff, if we go back and we look at some of the shows and some of the movies that we probably watched growing up, we're roughly about the same age. Cars didn't have seatbelts, or if they did, it was just a different world back then.
It was a lap belt, and usually, if I'm remembering correctly, front seat's the only one that had the lap belts for a long time. And of course, as you said, you and I are the same age. We grew up riding in the back of pickup trucks and in the station wagons where the rear seat, the one seat faced backwards, so you're watching the traffic that coming up behind you, type things. And I've done all of that from that standpoint. But we've learned how important seatbelts are, and the use of seatbelts has increased significantly over the years. The last statistics that I saw, which are 2024 statistics, so fairly current ones, on the use of seatbelts. The use of seatbelts now is up to 91.2% of the population are wearing seatbelts on a regular basis when they're in the vehicle, which is good. That's really good. And the statistics from that same standpoint are showing that nearly 50%, I think 49% of the fatalities were from people who were not belted. So when you got 91% are belted, and of the percentage in a wreck, 50% are the ones who are not belted. So you've got 9% is being responsible for 50% of the deaths. That shows, in my opinion, you how much the seatbelt is prevalent in reducing the severity of the injuries that the person has if they're involved in a motor vehicle accident.
Well, it's kind of funny. I remember back in the day, you used to hear these counter arguments. Well, I could get trapped in the car because my seatbelt won't. And I'm like, okay, maybe that made sense years ago, or maybe that was a common argument against it. But to your point, with 91% of the people now using them, I think we've gotten past that. Luckily for all of us, I think.
I agree, and I think Yeah, I've talked to people who would say, "Well, I don't want to wear the seatbelt because if I'm in a wreck and there's a fire, then I can't get out of it, and I don't want to do that." And it's like, so you're talking about a 0.1% of motor vehicle accidents. You're going to get rid of a safety thing that's going to be beneficial to you 99.99% of the time. And I'm like you, I think they have advanced the seatbelt technology significantly over the years. I don't see that occurring. I didn't look up stats on how many people died from burning inside of a vehicle, but I strongly suspect that those individuals were trapped by other mechanical means because of the car crushing in on them type things, and they couldn't get out, couldn't get the door open, which is much more likely going to occur than you can't get the seatbelt off.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Jeff, back in episode 96, we talked about the fact that Kentucky is a pure comparative fault state, which means you can share some of the fault for the injuries and stuff in a wreck, even if you weren't the negligent driver.
Correct.
Does not wearing a seatbelt does that come into play?
It does, actually. If you are not wearing a seatbelt and the defendant in the case has an expert witness that say that if you had your seatbelt on, that your injuries would have been less, then the jury can consider that and can reduce the amount of damages you receive, can basically put a portion of the fault, even if it's you're driving down the road, they run a stop sign and T-bone you, the jury can still apportion a portion of the fault for your injuries to you because you weren't wearing the seatbelt, and reduce what you recover in that situation. So that can kick into play there. In fact, I think they could argue that it's. I'm going to get a little. Talk a little legalese, and I don't like to do that in this, but what's called negligence per se, which is it takes out, they don't have to determine were you negligent because Kentucky law says you have to wear a seatbelt, and you weren't wearing your seatbelt, so by law you were negligent, and then the question is, did that have a factor in your injuries from that standpoint? So you make it even easier for them when you don't wear that seatbelt. Now, the biggest reason is it's much safer for you, but if money's what's motivating you, you're reducing your monetary recovery if you don't wear those as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Jeff, let's transition over to child safety seats. And, these things, when I was a new parent, these things, they're complicated at times. They're hard to get locked in. Sometimes you near break your back or pull a muscle trying to, get them in and out of the car sometimes. But they're a necessary thing that parents really, really need to pay attention to.
Absolutely. Having your child in the proper car seat can make a huge difference. I've represented people who've been in very bad wrecks. Saw photos where the front of the vehicle was just crushed, and they have a child in a proper car seat, properly belted in the car seat. The driver had significant injuries. The child in the proper car seat had absolutely no injuries in that accident, and that's happened on more than one occasion. It's really when a child is in the car seat properly, a proper car seat. I see less likely. I see much fewer injuries on those children than children who don't have to be in car seats anymore, or adults in there that are just in a regular seatbelt from that standpoint. And part of it is, a lot of the injuries are legs, and the legs aren't down into the passenger compartment for those in the car seats and some of those things. But those car seats are much. They have the harness a lot of times.
We've got the racing car harness.
They got the 5-point kind of connection harness type thing on there, and that just helps, or 3-point, and it just keeps them from going around as much. And it seems to me that at least that is from my experience, a huge safety factor for your child.
Well, as a man, I'll say this is the one point where I'll say that's actually better than duct tape. But for most purposes, duct tape's the best thing you can do.
Duct tape and WD-40 generally is what you need. Sometimes you got to have vice grips, but car seats or a proper car seat's best for a kid in the car. You don't want to vice grip them to the car seat.
Well, that tends to be problematic.
Yeah.
You've said several times, and you've mentioned it here, and I think it leads to a good topic: the proper car seat.
Correct.
And I think when you're bringing your infant home from the nursery for the first time, and you're really excited. I mean, they really won't release the child, won't release you all without a properly, outfitted car seat. But that child grows over time, and just because this is the one you began with or the one you upgraded at year one, doesn't mean that's the one that they need further down the road. And I think I drive down the road sometimes, and I see kids that are obviously oversized for the car seat that they're put into. And I think that the parents are trying to do the right thing. They're trying to make sure the kiddo's in a car seat, but they're actually causing problems.
True. If they're in the wrong car seat, it can be problematic for the kid from that standpoint. And before we started on this podcast, I went and wanted to make sure I had the most up to date. So I went to the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet's website, and they've got actually have a thing you can look at or print out on child seat safety. But I wanted to have the most up to date information for that. And if the child, there's one point that the child's supposed to be in a rear-facing car seat, and a child, from what they say, I put on that website, child must be kept in a rear-facing car seat, a minimum of 1 year of age and 20 pounds, with best practices being 2 years of age and 30 pounds on keeping a child in a rearward-facing car seat. After that, then you can move them to a forward-facing car seat. Children younger than 8 years of age and between 40 and 57 inches must be in a booster. Children younger than 8 but taller than 57 do not have to be in a booster seat. From that standpoint, I jumped over one. A child less than 40 inches has to be in a car seat. So if they're younger than 2 years or 30 pounds, best practice to have them in a rearward-facing car seat. After 2 years and 30 pounds, they can go forward-facing up to 40 inches. Then they need to be in a booster up to 8 years or 57 inches tall from that standpoint. So making sure you're complying. And as you mentioned, getting the car seats in can be difficult. Making sure you have that car seat properly in the vehicle is a key factor as well. From that, I know you'd have to check with your local police department, but I know police departments at times have had clinics where you could go and you drive up, they would check it, make sure it was the way it was supposed to be, and let you know. And if it wasn't, then they would show you how it was supposed to be attached into the car from that standpoint. And I suspect most of the police departments in Western Kentucky, if you call them up and say, "Look, I've got a new infant. I want to make sure my car seat is correct. Can we come up there and y'all look at it and check?" I'd be very shocked if a local police department wouldn't say, "Bring it up here, let us look at it. We'll make sure it's in there correct so that your child's protected." So.
Well, the one thing I've also heard, we had our firstborn, and then we went a few years before having our second. And, you generally aren't supposed to use the same car seat. It's almost like they have an expiration date on them or something. It's really kind of odd. We actually were asked, no, you need to go get a new car seat. So the one you've had stuck out in the shed for, a year or two really may not be up to spec, or it may have just kind of worn out.
The standards on those improve over time. So, yes, you want to get the most current, a seat built to the current National Highway Traffic Safety Administration standards. So getting an updated car seat is something that you should do. If you've got one that's been sitting in the attic for the past 5 years, get a new one. Don't use that one up there.
Yeah.
I can't tell you based on statistics or looking it up, but if it's been sitting in an attic in a barn where it's getting extremely hot over time, I wouldn't want to use that anymore.
Yeah, that material could just fail.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The material could fail from that standpoint. And then getting and the other side to that is like these statistics of 2021 with 91%, just slightly above 91% using car seats. You've got a lot, the younger generation has grew up, or not using car seats, using seatbelts. You have the younger generation now that grew up having to be in these car seats, being belted from early on in a car seat and then to a booster seat, and then the mandatory seatbelt laws that we have. So they've been in there, which I think is improving the number of people using seatbelts there, because our generation, we grew up not wearing seatbelts. Thankfully, the majority of us have gone to wearing seatbelts, but I suspect that 9% that's not wearing seatbelts is probably our generation and older that just grew up not doing that. I think it's hilarious, but it goes to how teaching your kid how this is. My wife and I, when our daughter was young, even when she did not have to be in the car seat, when she had been in the car seat, we would buckle her up. When she got to a booster, a lot of times she could do it herself, but car didn't crank up. We didn't even crank the car up until her seatbelt was on. We'd turn around and look, make sure you got to be belted. Even after that, you got to be belted. Car's not moving until your seatbelt's on and our seatbelts are on. And when she was a little older and had gone to school, they had a hayride, and they weren't going to be out on the road. They were actually driving through a field. And the teacher, when we went to pick her up that day, is like a fall festival thing, and we went to pick her up that day, and the teacher said, "Y'all have done a really good job with her." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, she almost would not go on the hayride because she sat down up there and she said, "Where's the seatbelt? I cannot ride in the car I can't ride in unless I've got a seatbelt on." And she said, "Well," and the teacher said, I told her, I said, "Well, if I hold you, would it be okay?" And she said, "I guess that'd be okay," but she said she would not get in. She wasn't going to go anywhere until she was belted in. And so I said, I'm glad she's that way. So.
No, well done. Well done for you guys. Hey, by the way, if you're listening to the episode, I'm going to put a couple of links in the show notes. One is going to be to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, where they talk about car seat recommendations for children. And then also Kentucky.gov has one. It's a child passenger safety information link, and I'll put both of those in there. Really good information to have. And if there's ever any confusion, or if you know somebody that's got some kiddos, feel free to pass that link out to them. Sometimes there's just confusion. It's hard to say these days that people are unaware, but I think a lot of times what I see is someone, the kiddo jumps in the car with a neighbor or jumps in with a family member to go somewhere, and the car seat's in the parent's car. It's still no excuse. You've got to be careful and just take a little time to transfer that car seat into the other car. Don't risk it. I saw a while back a parent, I guess it was a parent, driving down the road holding the kiddo in their lap, and I'm thinking that kid's a missile. That's so dangerous for that child, and the tragic outcome should there be a collision. And again, nobody plans for a collision. But wow, what a risk!
Oh, absolutely, it is. You don't do that, and I've talked to people, I've seen people who say, "Well, we were just going a half mile down the road." Doesn't matter. Put that child in the proper car seat. I've been driving down the interstate and see a kid running back and forth in the back seat, not in the seat belt, and in the use of seatbelts, especially for kids being in a car seat, belted like they're supposed to. Child protecting children is something I've done for the county attorney's office for years and years and years. It's something that's near and dear to me. And while I'm not, somebody comes speeding past me, I'm not going to call the cops on that. When I saw a kid running around in the back seat and the car's going 70 mile an hour down the interstate,
Yeah.
I got on my phone and called and told and reported that, and give the license plate number, what exit, where we were at on that, so that police could come and deal. I didn't care. I didn't want the people to get a ticket. I just wanted that kid to be properly secured in that vehicle so that they would not be injured.
Well, as an attorney who handles some very severe traffic accidents, whether it's on city roads, county roads, or unfortunately on highways and interstates, what can happen. And you may have saved that kiddo's life. I mean, that's the thing. It was funny you said, go ahead and buckle up the kiddo, even if you're just driving a half mile down the road. I'm amazed. I used to know the statistic, but the number of accidents that happen within like a half mile of your home tend to spike for some reason. The closer you get to home, maybe the lazier we get. Maybe we just go on autopilot, muscle memory, stuff like that. In fact, in high school, I totaled a car 5 driveways away from my house. And it's amazing how, don't assume just because you're going a short distance that it doesn't really matter. Everything's going to be okay. It's not worth the risk.
Correct. I know the stats that you're talking about. I haven't looked them up in a long time, but yes, the number of accidents increased closer to your home. I think part of that is because if you're in that area more than you are other areas. I mean, if you're when I come to work, I travel one certain route. If I go somewhere else, I travel another route. But there's a 3 or 5 mile radius that I may go out one of them, but I'm traveling that radius 3-4 times a day is a lot of times where I'm not other roadways. So I think that's part of it. From that is just you're in that area so much more frequently than you are away from that area there. But yes, and the way I look at it is, okay, it takes a little bit of time to make sure that child is properly restrained, either in a car seat, booster seat, or just a regular seat belt. If they're big enough that they don't have to be in a booster seat anymore, it takes a little bit more time. Okay, it does. I'll agree with you, it does. The consequences last a whole lot longer if you are in an accident, and I'd rather take that little bit more time 1,000 times than live with the consequences of a child being injured, severely injured, or killed because we didn't take that little bit of extra time.
Yeah, it's you can't undo that one.
No.
You can't undo that.
No.
Well, Jeff, let's transition. We've got a few more minutes here in this episode. Let's transition over to talking about, keeping with the theme of safe driving, avoiding texting while driving. I mean, it's amazing that it still goes on, and I'll be honest with you, I'm guilty of it, but it's something I'm a little bit more conscious of these days, probably because we do so many of these podcasts. But it's amazing how distracted people can get when they're texting.
Exactly, and that's what a lot of time it's called distracted driving because. And from there, and looking at some of the statistics, the most recent numbers I'd seen were from 2022 in that regard, and 8% of the fatal crashes occurred were the result of distracted driver. 12% of the injury cases were from distracted driving. They actually had the number of people that were killed in motor vehicle crashes in 2022 from distracted drivers were 3,300. So that's 3,300 people that died that should not have died. A lot of times it is the driver, or the distracted driver may be the one that dies. Unfortunately, it could be that they've killed somebody else in that regard. Nearly 300,000 people were injured as a result of distracted drivers. Those numbers are huge.
Yeah. We've done an episode, and I'll put a link to this, on pedestrian and bicycle accidents where, unfortunately a car has collided with a pedestrian, and that doesn't usually turn out that well.
Yeah.
And then also episode 49, we did talk about distracted and drowsy driving accidents. That's another issue.
Yes.
It's not just texting or being distracted. It's driving when you really shouldn't be out there because you're just tired.
Correct. And, people don't realize how when you're driving down an interstate, you're driving at 55, 65, 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, let's leave it at that.
Yeah. I know better than to, I know my Fourth Amendment rights. I'm not going to incriminate myself. So you're driving at speed limit speeds on a highway or some highway, some 4 lanes are 65, or interstate you've got 70-mile-an-hour speed limits, and they don't realize how far they travel in just a relatively short period of time. I was looking at that, and statistics is you're basically, if I'm trying to see exactly what this says, but the distance you travel in a short period of time while you're looking at your phone, you think, okay, I'm going to look at it, it's just going to take a couple of seconds. You've traveled a football field or a couple of football fields.
Well, especially at highway speeds. Yeah,
At highway speeds, you're traveling that fast. It's just amazing how far you're traveling, and if you're 3 car lengths, 4 car lengths, 5 car lengths from the car in front of you, and you look down for a few seconds and then look back up, and they've hit their brakes hard because the deer run out in front of them, it's too late. You can't adjust at that point in time.
Yeah, well, in here in this region with land between the lakes, not too far from here, and you've got, we used to spend a lot of time down at Eddy Creek and in that area, and you're traveling home. Maybe you've been out on the boat, maybe you've been out, in the water all day. Regardless of whether you've been drinking or not, that's a whole different story. But you've just been on the water. You tend to be pretty well fatigued, and you're now getting to the car trying to make it back to the house, by a certain period of time. And again, your reaction time is going to be a lot slower. You might be drowsy enough that you're swerving a little bit. You may not be able to keep your eyes open when you should. These are things that, again, if you've got somebody else that can drive, let them. If you just need to pull over and take a quick nap or get out and stretch your legs, maybe get a soda or something like that, go do it. But that's, those are situations that can be avoided. We just don't really think about it. When I was down here at Murray, you and I went to Murray roughly at the same time, and we had a student who died on his way back to, I guess we were coming back from summer vacation, maybe we were coming back from spring break, flipped his pickup truck in the middle of 641 out there, and unfortunately passed away. There's a lot of students out there. The parents, if you're listening to this, remind your students, make sure you're awake, take your time, put your seatbelt on, do all these things that normally we know we should be doing. We just kind of forget, and it's that one time that we forget that could have tragic consequences.
Absolutely. It can be very tragic when these things happen. And, I think that some of the things we have now, as you know, because you're with me doing these podcasts, I drink a lot of coffee. I have, that's, law school taught me the law, and it taught me drink a lot of coffee so I could stay up and study. And that used to be the drink of choice to keep you awake at night and all of that. And when you're driving, you shouldn't be doing that. Now you've got the Monsters and the other energy drinks, Red Bulls, 5-Hour Energy, all of those things. And people think, well, I can take that and I'll stay awake and be able to drive for another 3 hours. If you're tired, do something to try to avoid ever being in that situation to start with if you can. That's by far the best thing to do from that. But, if you get severely tired, you don't need to be driving down the roadway. From there, you definitely don't need to be texting and driving down the roadway. Distracted driving, it just doesn't, and sadly, there's been cases, luckily I have not had to deal with any of these yet, but I know these cases are out there where people have a, cars now, SUVs have where you can play a DVD for the passengers in there, but there's some who've got them rigged up to where they can actually be driving down the road and watching a movie. Wow. While they're driving, and it's playing it on the computer or playing it on one of those things.
Playing it on your phone.
Yeah, exactly. And they're watching the movie driving down the road, and it is just made to order to kill yourself or kill somebody else or seriously maim people, and you just use. Frankly, I hate to say it, but use common sense. That's just not common sense. I'm going to watch a movie while I drive down the roadway.
Yeah, again, just taking your eyes off the road for just a few seconds, like you said, you're going to end up going a football field or more before you know it, and that could be some bad outcomes.
Yeah, and talking. My wife and I, when we travel, we'll talk at times.
That's good to know.
Yeah, and it's just not from. Normally, when I talk to people, I look at them, and I've got to make a conscious effort at times to not look when I'm responding and pay attention to the roadway or the mic here that I'm hitting with my hand. Pay attention to the roadway in front of me instead of looking when I am responding to her or asking her something from that standpoint. Yeah. And I've been in vehicles when the person driving would be part of the conversation, and they'll turn around to look at somebody behind in the back seat to respond back to them. I'm sitting there. You turn around and look at the roadway. We can hear you. Exactly. I can hear what you're saying. You don't have to look back at me when you talk. You keep your eye ahead looking at the roadway from that standpoint. Again, it's the same if you're looking down at your phone, trying to read a text that got sent to you. And as we mentioned before, you travel a long distance in a very, very short period of time, and you look back, you don't think about it, you look back for 3-4 seconds. If that car in front of you, what's happening, you have no clue what's taking place. It's like, would you want somebody to blindfold you for 5 seconds while you're driving down an interstate? Everybody's going to say no. Looking at your phone for 5 seconds, looking somewhere else for 5 seconds, not paying attention is the exact same thing.
Exact same thing.
Yeah.
Well, on that happy note, Jeff, you have 2 offices now. We're recording today down here in Murray, down in Calloway County, off of Main Street. But you have another office up in Hopkinsville, off of South Virginia, right?
I do. I have the office up there at South Virginia. Virginia Place actually is the office complex that I'm in up there. I've been up there for coming up on 2 years now. And it's worked out well. I've always had lots of clients up in that area and up in the Bowling Green area, and it's worked out for me to be able to meet with them there. But I only have the one phone number to reach out to me. I think that works better. So if someone wants to talk with me about an injury, if they've been involved in a motor vehicle accident because of a distracted driver or something of that nature, just involved in a motor vehicle accident, want to know what their rights are, what they may what the laws are in that regard, I'll be happy to talk with them. The phone number to reach me is 270-753-0053.
Outstanding. And now, friends, we recorded this as a safe driving episode. We hope you found some good advice. If nothing more, maybe just a reminder of some of the things we probably already know, but it might be something you want to share. But if you happen to be a motorcyclist, Jeff has actually ridden motorcycles the majority of his adult life. And back in episode 102, we issued the annual motorcycle safe driving tips, and I'll put a link of that. Put a link to that in the show notes as well. And I encourage you, look, if you have a motorcycle, you enjoy getting out, there's some other things you might want to look at, and especially some big issues with insurance that I'm always amazed every time we do it that I think a lot of people are unaware of that you really might want to consider.
A lot of people are unaware that the motorcycle is not required to have PIP coverage, and a lot of times, unless you specifically ask for it, you're not going to have that coverage. And the coverages for your motorcycle, you need to be real. You need to make sure you've got good coverage on the motorcycle if you're riding a motorcycle from that standpoint, because they think, well, I've got good car insurance. Car insurance may not cover.
Different animal altogether.
It very likely is not going to cover even the extra, the uninsured, underinsured that you purchase for your car to protect yourself. A lot of car insurance policies, if that motorcycle is not insured under their policy as well, that underinsured and uninsured is probably not going to be applicable to you on a motorcycle.
Yeah. So once again, friends, that's episode 102. 2025 motorcycle safety tips, and it'll be available either on Jeff's website, jeffrobertslaw.com, or you can find it via the link that I'll put in the show notes for this episode. Jeff, as we always close up these episodes, we like to talk and remind people a little bit about the motto for this office.
Yes, I have a motto that we live by here at my office, and The motto itself is to provide small town service and deliver big city results. We try to do that in every case we handle from there, and we try to make sure our clients know what's coming up, what's taking place in their case right then, answer any of their questions, get them prepared for the next steps that are taking place so that they can plan for that and obviously obtain the best recovery that we can for our clients. So.
Outstanding, my friend. Always good to see you. We'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Good to see you, Jim.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Jeff will return in 2 weeks. Until then, he invites you to visit jeffrobertslaw.com and follow his firm on Facebook. At the Roberts Law Office, you'll find a history of small town service and big city results.